Get ready, everyone, and you just might survive. Ruben and Jason are here with their X-Men deep dive. Going through all the X-books is their mission, so get ready for the Learned Edition. Things are getting weird in here. Ruben hopes another sword book gets announced this year.
Ruben.
It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow.
How dare you!
Mind. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow. Except your mind.
Welcome all you weirdos, Magneto clone aficionados, and all newly elected galactic leaders. Hope you have good health coverage. It is time to receive your 152nd Weird Dose of X, the mutant member of your Weird Science podcast family. I am your space Wakandan host Jason, broadcasting as always from the Wrong Turn studio perched high atop stately Weird Science Tower. And joining me from inside a creepy black pyramid on the grounds of Arlington National Cemetery, it's my pal Ruben. Hey Ruben, how the heck are you? Ruben, you're still muted.
Oh, God. I could beg Jim to edit that out, but I have a feeling that's going to be left in.
We're hitting the ground running today. We got a lot to accomplish. I'm glad we got the energy. We're ready to go.
Oh, man.
So how you been there, Ruben?
I'm good. I actually was very near Arlington last week. I was in Washington, D.C. For work, and I saw the Washington Monument, and I chuckled. I was looking for Hellverine, but did not see him.
There's no flaming demonic mutant riding a motorcycle up the side of the monument?
Not when I was looking. I'm sure it happened when I was looking.
Maybe they'll
direction.
install one. You know, the current administration likes to shake things up. Maybe we can get something accomplished there. Moving on. It's been a big weekend here. We are recording a day later than usual. Thank you for your flexibility, Ruben. Because it was my younger daughter's high school graduation at the end of last week. So we had the party this weekend with my parents visiting and folks kind of staying over. So it was nice to have a little extra time to get the prep work done here so we can have a little more intelligent things to say about some pretty complicated books. So what we are going to talk about today is, first off, X-Men number 17. And then, Ruben, we're going to talk about something called Imperial number 1, which is a book that doesn't actually have an X in the title, so we'll talk later about how we got that. And then we're going to finish up with some quick hits on Hellverine number 7 and Storm number 9.
Number 9?
So, we don't have any Infinity Comic to get to this week. We're on that 1 week break between arcs, so let's get right to it. Are we ready to go?
Yep.
Awesome. Our first book is X-Men number 17, Visitor, written by Jed MacKay, pencils by Ryan Stegman, and inks by J.P. Mayer, Ryan Stegman, and Livesey. I believe is how you say that gentleman's name. One of those deals where, this book comes out every 17 seconds, it seems, so sometimes they get a bunch of inkers to finish things up. It is colored by Fer Cifuentes Sujo and letters by our man Clayton Cowles. So, Ruben, a lot of things are going on in this issue, although not much time is passing, right? We've spent 4 issues on a single in-universe day, the day that Piper Cobb's absorbed twin, the one we're calling Twinsy takes control and wanders out into the Alaskan wilderness to build herself a brand new kaiju monster body out of alien flesh. On top of that, and somehow coordinated, we don't know quite how yet, 3K is also here, shows this same day to mess with the X-Men, and we do learn a bit more about 3K today. But I think the first thing we should do is check in with our boy Quentin Quire, who was blown out of the sky by 3K's wire in issue 14 at the very beginning of this arc. And Ruben, Quentin Quire lives. How exciting. So were you happy to see Quentin actually not up and running today, but at least alive?
I mean, they addressed it, right? I was glad that they finally addressed it. And I was extremely amused when I saw it because I was like, okay, Jason can finally stop asking me if Quentin's alive or dead.
I've been predicting for several issues, next issue, certainly we're going to find out what's going to happen. And Jed MacKay has had other things to take care of, so Kid Omega is still crossed out in the credits page today. Yeah. The credits page lists 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 characters, including like our regular X-Men plus the 6 of the 3K X-Men. And Kid Omega's crossed out, but he won't be crossed out next issue. So we get a flashback to the moment right after Wire blew up the Marauder aircraft that Kid Omega was flying in. And as Quentin plummets towards the Earth, he has the presence of mind to slow down his subjective consciousness, which I guess he can do, and to run what he calls a macro that he prepared for, I guess, events such as this one, which makes him out to be a little more like Sage than I had thought, more like a human computer, but yeah, that's fine. This macro is supposed to continue to run even when Quentin himself was unconscious, and its job is life support and impact absorption, and it's supposed to continue its job until anyone from this list of authorized allies shows up, to take control. This list includes all of his current X-Men allies, other than the brand new ones, Ben and Jennifer, and the list also includes Phoebe Cuckoo. What, did you notice Phoebe's inclusion on this list, and did you have any reaction to that?
No.
So Phoebe was the one who, she and Quentin had been an item in the Krakoa times. And the last time we saw Phoebe, though, she was in NYX, and she had kind of got over to the dark side of things, working with Hellion and Empath with all their nastiness. So kind of interesting that Quentin still leaves her on the list. I don't know if she was always on the list, and it's like, well, do you update your emergency contact after you break up with your girlfriend? But there she is. The X-Man who does find Quentin isn't Phoebe, but it's Zorn with an X. Zorn picks Quentin up and starts to fly him back to base. We don't see him get there, but I think them arriving back at the base may figure in what happens in the next issue. Because we see at the end of the issue, something else is happening at the base.
Yeah, I have a feeling they'll end up saving the people at the base.
Yeah, because we're gonna have a little enemy invasion of the base, and I think what I'm actually hoping to see Zorn do something cool, because he's a nifty character, and he's done some healing things in this book, but other than that, he's kind of just been a background kind of guy. So giving Zorn a scene to show off would be nifty.
I mean, he was flying. That's pretty cool.
I mean, I guess they kind of all fly, don't they? I mean, even Cyclops, if he blasts his eye blast in the correct direction, he can kind of zoom around a little bit. So while this is going on, we have 2 side-by-side fight scenes happening, 2 very different scales. In the Kaiju scale, we have Magneto magnetically piloting a Sentinel trying to stop Kaiju Twinsy from destroying the town of Merle. And Twinsy herself is, in a way, being piloted by Cassandra Nova, who is secretly feeding Twinsy instructions and manipulating her into doing Cassandra's bidding. And Magneto doesn't know Cassandra's involved, but I wonder if he starts to get a little suspicious, because Twinsy here is taunting him in ways that a little kid, one who's never even had her own physical existence before, just wouldn't know how to do. So here's a quote. Magneto, I thought you used to be someone, but look at you now, using a Sentinel as a crutch, fighting a mutant to protect flat scans. Now that's not some naive little, 8-9-year-old kid. That's coming right from Cassandra. So he's got to be able to put together that somebody else is involved here, right? Don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
So Magneto starts off doing pretty well against the inexperienced Kaiju, but then she does manage to rip off his arm, or the Sentinel arm, and tackle him. Now remember, Magneto is not at his full, sexiest self at the moment. He's suffering from a kind of resurrection sickness, and is only able to even do what he's doing because he got drugged up on mutant amphetamines by Beast. The other battle is between the X-Men and the other X-Men. These other ones are the adult onset mutants created by 3K and trained by Wire. Wire and Cassandra have a bit of a proxy rivalry going on. It's kind of fun here. Now, which of their proteges is going to do better against the X-Men, Twinsy, or the 3K X-Men? Main focus of this battle is the real X-Men working to take down the leader of the 3K X-Men. Now, Ruben, last time I pronounced this guy's name the way an American who's kind of read about some astronomy would pronounce it. I said Schwarzschild.
Mm-hmm.
But I have since been gently corrected on the Slack by our German buddy Nils. And Ruben, I've been working on it. I've been working on pronouncing it in a more proper German fashion. So here goes.
Schwarzschild.
Not bad, huh? I've been working on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive.
See, a little practice can get you far. So Cyclops has
I
noticed
can't say it that way, man. I wish I could.
it just take some practice, just have a beer and a sausage and get to it.
Okay.
So Cyclops has noticed that all of the 3K X-Men's tactics are run by their leader.
Schwarzschild.
And he figures if they can take
Schwarzschild.
out, then the rest should fall like a house of cards.
Schwarzschild.
Is able to defeat Cyclops' eye blast by deflecting them to pass around him, gravitational stuff. So Cyclops goes full-on pocket sand. He fires the eye blast in front of
Schwarzschild.
Splashing mud into the poor guy's face. Once
Schwarzschild.
is thus distracted, Juggernaut jump punches him into the ground so hard he forms a crater. We don't see the rest of the fight against the rest of the 3K X-Men. Maybe that'll happen next issue, but the implication is it's not going to go well for them. So what did you think of this fairly quick, compact fight scene? The idea that Cyclops, sure, maybe his mutability isn't the absolute strongest, but he's the tactician. He can get things done. What did you think of this?
I liked it. I fist bumped. I mean, I really like Cyclops, and he is definitely at this point not the strongest, with his power. But it's nice to remind people that he has other abilities, like very extremely good spatial awareness and like tactical abilities.
Now, I think
apparently he's really good at pulls. What I read at some point.
I think I've heard that somewhere. Yeah, thematically gets a little confused because they kind of make out that the weakness of the 3K people is that all their tactics go through their leader.
Yes,
but isn't the same true of the X-Men? And they win because all their tactics right now are going through Cyclops. So, yeah, I'd work on that a little bit, but I got the point. It was fun.
I mean, it might not be that. I mean, if you have two teams that are run by one figurehead, right, and you take out the other figurehead, then your tactics were superior. It didn't seem like they were. It didn't seem like the new X-Men were focused on taking out Cyclops. Everyone was sort of like paired up one-on-one.
True, but if I was trying to do here's how we're different from them, I would want to show the rest of the X-Men taking their own initiative and figuring things out without necessarily just being told what to do, by Cyclops. But it was a fun.
The difference is they know what they are and how to work.
That is true.
The other team is new, right? They don't realize how dependent they are on. Can you say his name again?
Yeah. Here goes. Excuse me.
Schwarzschild.
Thank you.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
That guy.
So while both these fights are happening, moves are being made behind the scenes as well. So let's check in on 3K. They are observing the battle remotely. I think there's a hint. There's like drones in the air watching things. They're observing the battle from wherever their villain lair is located. I don't think we know where that is. They're still gathered around that giant round table in the dark. I've come up with a theory why they have such a huge table for just basically 3 people. I think they're playing Warhammer 4K on the rest of it. I think they have all their little models set up, and in between being villains, they're rolling dice and playing.
Yeah, well, it's a good game. It's fun. I played that at one point in my life.
I went to one role-playing game convention when I was in high school, which, slightly nerdy thing to do, but hey, I'm on a comic book podcast now, and you're listening to it, folks.
Yeah,
you can't throw
a lot
stones.
cooler as an adult, right?
But even us role-playing game people were like, those Warhammer folks, they're kind of weird. They're kind of obsessed. And I think game. 3K would play Warhammer.
It's a very fun game. I like it. It's an extreme time commitment, right? It takes
seems expensive too, right?
Stuff. Well, here's my story. If you want a really expensive hobby, you get into Magic the Gathering. That's like the break your bank hobby. So at one point in my life, I was like, this is too expensive. I'm going to downgrade to play 40K. That's less expensive. That's a budget game.
That's like, I'm not going to smoke crack anymore. I'm just going to freebase cocaine, and that'll be kind of easing my way off of it.
Yes, exactly.
I don't even know if those are the same. Anyway, I'm not.
They call Magic cardboard crack for a reason. It's not just that it's an addiction; it's the cost. It's pretty equivalent.
So 3K have put their Warhammer game on hold so they can have a real world event here, and we get some better looks at some of our hitherto unknown members of 3K. The chairman, he's still wearing kind of a Cerebro-esque helmet, looking a lot like a cross between Professor X and the Maker. But we don't yet know who he really is. Do you have any guesses yet on who the chairman might be? Probably not Frank Sinatra.
No.
He's
have any
still
ideas at this point?
I don't. I mean, I'm curious. He looks so much like Professor X, and clearly he's supposed to look like Professor X. I'm almost wondering if there's going to be some alternate dimension
Professor
or like
X.
a clone version, right? Cassandra is his twin sisters, so is there some clone? I don't know. Something weird's going to happen. I'm probably wrong. But we do find out a lot more about that other member, thus far only known as the Doctor. We knew she looked like a woman and that she was accompanied by a male figure standing behind her. Well, the Doctor is Astra, a late 90s villain created by Alan Davis and Fabian Nicieza. She had been a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, mainly known for creating Joseph, that clone of Magneto, who I don't know, was he originally supposed to be a clone? Was it retcon that he was a clone? X-Men history is complicated, but as of right now, Joseph was always a clone. And that male figure standing behind her is not the original Joseph, but it's another Magneto clone, also called Joseph. She's got a theme and she's sticking to it.
Yeah.
Astra thinks that 3K are going about this all wrong. What she wants to do is create an army of Magneto clone Josephs and use them to flip the Earth's magnetic poles. Now, how exactly this gets them anything is not specified, but flipping the poles is what Astra wanted to do back in 1999 on her first appearance, and once again, once she has a theme, once she has a plan, she really sticks to it. Now, the chairman here says some interesting things. He says, hey, Astra, forget about that. We have an agreement between us forming 3K, and clone armies are expressly forbidden by this agreement. And he says that, he himself is also fully capable of producing clone troops, but he's not going to do that because of that agreement, which naturally makes us think of, our man Nathaniel Essex.
Yeah, this
Mr.
actually,
Sinister.
as you remind me of this point, I actually did have a theory when I read this. I was thinking, is this, I can't remember exactly how he was killed off, but I thought he was, but I was like, is this a Dr. Stasis? Or maybe even a clone of Dr. Stasis? It would be an interesting idea, right? Because the Essexes are clone experts. So the idea that, besides Nathaniel, there was only one of the four that we had previously, it's not something I could completely, be convinced is the outcome.
That doesn't feel like the kind of thing that they'd be doing in this new era. They're kind of trying to leave Krakoa behind, but I like thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'd give it low probability, but it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Because on panel, they do say, the chairman says, there's a reason why Nathaniel Essex was not invited to join this group.
Yeah, because you can't trust him.
Clearly.
That's a pretty simple, easy explanation.
And also, he's busy over in one of the other books, so he's kind of been claimed.
Yeah.
But that's a decent amount of new info about 3K.
Yeah, at least we found out who Astra was. And also, when I saw the Joseph clone, I thought, okay, well, here's your resurrection degenerative disease solution.
Oh,
Some sort of mind port into a Joseph clone.
Huh. I didn't think of that. That could work. I'm still thinking that my prediction is that the whole regenerative disease thing is going to turn out to be not real. Like something else is up with Magneto, just because he's the only character suffering from it, and it doesn't make sense that he'd be the only one if it's real. But maybe that's what's going to happen. I like the clone idea. That's fun to think of, too.
You could have Beast also just doing some sort of comparison of his DNA versus Magneto's, right? And then maybe spotting
kind of repairing it.
What the difference is, and then repairing
Say the word nano a couple times and say it's all fixed now.
Yep.
That could work. It could work. So while this is going on, there's also more action at back of the X-Men's own factory headquarters. We have Ben Liu. He's the adult onset mutant who made it look like San Francisco was being invaded by aliens. He thinks that Magneto needs some help holding back Twinsy. He says, hey, cut it, buddy. That's not going to help. You go out there and make UFOs appear. That's only going to make things worse. But Ben storms out anyway and calls for Jen Starkey, the other adult onset mutant with the X-Men, the one who currently can fly and can adapt to different situations, says, you come with me. And it turns out he has a very different plan in mind. No UFOs. He and Jen fly out and grab little Piper Cobb, that human girl who kind of got this whole thing started, and they bring Piper back home to her mother, Rose. Rose we have seen as part of the anti-mutant protests. Ben says to Rose, my friend is going to die unless we get your help. You're the only one who can stop this. And once again, the scene gets cut off kind of early, but presumably he wants Rose to appeal to Twinsy, her child, who she didn't know still existed, to stop all this city smashing, right? Is that what we're supposed to be thinking is going to happen here?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Right.
I'm mute again.
So, we've seen scenes like that before, and it's an interesting dynamic because Rose has her own ideas of what mutants are. She didn't know that she knew that she at one point had twins. We saw that doctor scene. She thought the one twin had been totally absorbed, which physically the twin had been absorbed. But now that twin is real and is a mutant and is a giant murderous kaiju. So that's a lot to learn in one day, I think. So we'll see how Rose reacts to this.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, she is like anti-mutant, right?
Right. So is she going to get
I wonder
her
how
own
quickly she
redemption arc?
will be able to get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Is she going to end up in the, what's it called? The artery?
She doesn't want to end up in the dark artery as someone who's harmed their own mutant relative.
Yeah.
Very specific afterlife. Highly specific.
We have another crossover.
So we get one more cliffhanger page, also setting something up for next time. And it seems that one of the aims 3K had with this operation, and I still want to know how they coordinated things with Piper Cobb, because they clearly were planning on using her. So something's going on there. One of their aims was to distract all the X-Men, to spread them out, make them fight over here, make them fight over there. And while almost all of them are away from their factory base, right? Who's back at the base? Beast is there. Glob. Is anyone else left at the base? I don't think so. Because Zorn's gone.
Yeah.
The Jen and Ben are gone. So yeah, very, very lightly defended. And while they're all away, Wire enters the base. He's that guy who works for 3K, who trained the new 3K X-Men. And we don't know exactly what he's up to there, but it can't be anything good. So yeah, I'm thinking that Beast is probably going to have to hold him off a little bit, and then I'm thinking Zorn's going to ride into the rescue. That's my prediction. Probably going to be wrong. Well, and that was it. So, Ruben, what do we think of this issue? Did you have a good time with this? Did you think it was too convoluted, too much of a middle issue? What do you got for me?
I thought it was great. I thought giving us the name of the other member of 3K was helpful. Seeing Magneto in his war suit was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed Kid Omega finally being dealt with, and then this idea that Wire's going to the Merrill base and to see what those other characters are going to do with that is kind of a nice cliffhanger. So it's just a middle issue, but I thought it was a fun middle issue.
Yeah, I think it's got some middle issueness to it. I think it's got some decompression issues going on because, like you say, we're glad to finally learn a little bit more about 3K, and this is issue 17. They showed up at issue number 1. So this is a plot line that we've talked about. Jed MacKay is really having lots and lots of plot lines and kind of dribbling out information on each of them very slowly. It's being done well, but I wouldn't mind him stepping on the gas a little bit. I think the art looks really good. We mentioned there's a ton of inkers, but without having read those names, I wouldn't have known looking at the art that it was a team effort. It all looks very, very Ryan Stegman-y. I think if I'm going to criticize the art at all, I'd say that with so much going on in the plot this issue, we have a whole lot of small panels just to get the plot moving along. Not as many of the impressive splash pages, but Twinsy versus Magneto in particular still looks really darn cool. And even Quentin falling out of the sky looks really impressive.
So I've been talking to ChatGPT while you're talking.
Okay.
As I do. And it's, it came up with some really bad guesses as to who the chairman is. But there's one here that I think is interesting.
Hit me. What does ChatGPT predict the chairman's going to be?
A resurrected or retooled Bastion. And given that there are so many 90s 2000 characters in here, I think that's a viable guess.
Well, if that turns out to be true, maybe I'll resign and ChatGPT can take over. So we'll see how that goes. But can ChatGPT say
Schwarzschild
as well as I can? I don't think so. Only a real human being can do that.
Not yet.
So to wrap this up, I'm enjoying this too. I'm happy seeing Mama Cobb being brought into play. I think that's fun. I'm glad to see more things going on with 3K. But yeah, kind of a middle issue, but a good middle issue. And I'm going to go 8 out of 10. How about you, Ruben?
Wow. With all your negativity, I thought it'd be a little lower. But I just give it a 7. I didn't think it was exceptional, but I was quite happy reading it. And I have the same feeling that I have when I finish most of these MacKay X-Men stories, which is I'm ready for the next issue.
Mm-hmm.
If I was picking this up in trade, I think I'd be having a blast. And I know this is 17 issues in, so it's kind of long, but
I do wonder if the rapid shipping of this title is causing him to get the story out in maybe the same amount of time as he would otherwise do it, but spread it over more issues. We're going to have 18 issues in 1 year instead of 12. So maybe we got 12 issues worth of plot, but kind of spread out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Anyway, I think we're both still enjoying it. So that was X-Men number 17.
Does Astra have psychic defenses against Cassandra? Because you couldn't put me in a on a team with Cassandra Nova without some certainty that she wasn't going to like putting her fingers through my brain.
I'm not going to say that I'm really an expert on Astra, who is fairly obscure character. So yeah, I'd have to look that up. But yeah, Cassandra Nova is a tough person to be on a team with for just those reasons. So
I assume that like evil Cerebro Helmet has some sort of protection.
Makes sense.
Built in, but I'm looking at Astra, I'm like, yeah, you're not too smart, are you?
Well, she has Joseph with her, so maybe she thinks that having a bodyguard is kind of protection.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Joseph doesn't wear Magneto's helmet.
Maybe this clone has an internal Magneto helmet. A little metal plate in the head. That is a really bad theory, but it's what I'm going to stick with as we transition to our next book, which is something called Imperial Number 1, written by some guy called Jonathan Hickman. Art by Iban Coelho and Federico Vicentini. Colors by Federico Blee. Letters by Corey Pettit. Now, Ruben, I'm confused. What is the name of the show we're recording right now? What are we doing?
I know this is Weird Dose of X, but there are Shi'ar in here, so...
Is that all it takes?
I'm convinced that this is secretly an X-Men book, and anytime I see Deathbird, I'm like, oh yeah, it's X-Men. And we were told that, X-Manhunt was going to continue in the future, and we kind of assumed that it was in this Imperial story. I still have a feeling that this is like going to loop into that. Although this seems to be taking place before is my speculation.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of discussion about exactly when things are lining up here because there are some questionable choices. So there's a few reasons that we're doing it on this show. Number one, as Ruben alludes, we thought it was going to have a bit more X content. And it does feature not just the Shi'ar, it even features Professor X's own daughter, Xandra Narimani. So, she's got an X in her name. Close enough.
Yeah. But and the Super Guardians show up too. I mean, that's like very entrenched with X-Men lore. Oh. And I get there's like the Planet Hulk stuff too, right? And there's some Annihilation references, but
and some Black Panther stuff and some Nova, a whole lot of stuff. But mostly
there's enough here that it's like I feel like we're qualified to speak about this. And I do not believe for a second that Jim has read Annihilation or Annihilation Conquest, which I actually have read. So
that's really what it comes down to.
We have way more chops on this.
Really, the reason we're covering this is because our dear leader, James Werner, has zero interest in covering it on the main Marvel show. He said words to the effect of,
"No, we don't need that. Jason and Ruben could go through that."
So yeah, if it's going to be covered, it was going to be covered here. Plus, the origin of this very podcast, back when I started it with our old friend Chris, was because Jonathan Hickman was starting a new thing that Jim Werner had no patience with and had no interest in. So, in a sense, we're really taking this thing back to the roots of the program. Jonathan Hickman's doing a complicated thing that makes Jim annoyed. Correct. We're going to cover it here.
Correct. I could tell that he is not a Team Hickman person. He hasn't gone on like a tirade saying that he, effing hates Hickman, because I think he recognizes that he's a good writer, but I don't think that his style is the Jim Werner style.
Yeah, these days, Jim is more into like Robo-Wolf and anything with a hedgehog in it. That seems to be what's really pushing his button. So, no Robo-Wolves, no hedgehogs, as far as I can tell, in this book. So he's just not interested. But without wolves and hedgehogs, what is this book? And first off, it's pretty long. It's more than 50 pages. It's divided up into 4 chapters, the first couple of which are nearly long enough to have been full issues on their own. And this is just issue 1 of a 4-issue miniseries. This book was priced at $7. The other 3 are priced at $5 each. So just based on that, I'm guessing they won't be quite as long as issue number 1. And Ruben, I hadn't realized, but I was doing some looking around at Amazon, checking for release dates and things. But there are also 2 tie-in books that release in between Imperial issues 3 and 4. Were you aware of this?
I was not. What are they?
They're called Imperial War: Black Panther and Imperial War: Planet She-Hulk.
Cool.
They both come out in late August, like before the final issue of the main series comes out, presumably in September. And those tie-in issues are also written by Hickman. Again, at least according to Amazon, who's not always perfect about these things.
Yeah,
usually
if they are, it sounds like they're not just trash. Like they actually might be taking, themes from this story and spelling them out, which would be great.
I don't know. Right, they're called Imperial War, so there's a lot of hints in this issue that war is coming. So maybe those are the issues that show us the actual war. Who knows? Very much speculative here. So, before the very, very first section, the first chapter, I guess, we get 2 pages that form like a framing story. We have 2 beings playing a futuristic board game, which that kind of put me off at the beginning because it makes me think of X of Swords, right? That was the same, we're playing a board game and the board game's a metaphor and all those things. But I'm going to try to keep my head on the game. It appears that these 2 are sitting in a bar as they play, and this bar appears to be located within some otherworldly sea, with alien fish and whale-type creatures swimming around outside the windows. We don't get to see the faces of the players, but both look generally human-shaped, and we see the human-appearing mouth of one of them. So there's a lot of speculation going around online about who these characters might be. But what I've seen mostly is I see people saying that the one whose mouth we see looks like Loki. Doesn't feel like a Loki kind of a story, right? Cosmic, Hickman. I don't see Loki fitting in there.
I've seen people claim as Mephisto.
Mephisto, again, it doesn't feel like that kind of story. I certainly could be wrong. I think you said you had some other guesses who these people might be.
Well, I didn't know who this face person was, but I'm pretty much like 95% confident that the one whose outfit we see is the Grandmaster.
Grandmaster.
The Grandmaster is one of the, what is it? Not Eternals, but...
He's part of that group. There's the Collector, there's the Grandmaster.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever that family's called.
Group.
The Elders of the... I think it's the Elders of the Universe or something
that
like that.
That sounds right.
Yeah, that family. His outfit looks exactly like the Grandmaster's. I mean, he's playing a game, right? That's the whole shtick of the Grandmaster. And, even the glove and, see some of his purple skin. It just looks to me like, yes, this is Grandmaster.
Okay, so 95% you say. That's pretty bold.
Yeah, if this is not Grandmaster, I will be very surprised. But, yeah, I didn't have a great idea. I agree with you. I didn't really think that the other one really looked like Mephisto, but I guess people are going off of the red skin. And he does kind of have the hair, but I don't know what Mephisto would be doing.
The lighting. It feels like they're in a bar with some strange colored lighting, so I'm not going to say, his skin is any particular color. So what these 2 characters are doing is while they're playing the game, they're discussing a wager. And the person on the left says, "What we are wagering is no small sum, and the cost, if you should lose, just might lead to the end of you and yours." You and yours, that seems important, right? Mephisto doesn't really have a you and yours. Maybe the Grandmaster does. Loki, you and yours? Asgardians, are they you and yours? Not sure. So the person on the right responds, "You might be right. You probably are. But I just couldn't live with myself if I didn't try." So the implication seems to be that these 2 are responsible for shaping the narrative that we see happening in the rest of the book. But again, for now, just a framing story. And as this discussion happens, we're shown intercutting panels of the marine creatures outside the window. We see creature number 1 attack and eat creature number 2. And then at the end of the book, where it wraps around, we see a much, much larger creature number 3 about to eat creature number 1. Clearly symbolic of what? I couldn't tell you yet, but boy, is it symbolic. Now into the proper part 1, which is called Light the Pyre of Hirokala. So as we join this part, 3 of our main characters are journeying via Shi'ar wormhole from Earth to the planet Sakaar and Nevo in the Andromeda Galaxy. So it's kind of a good way of getting us into this, right? We're coming from Earth into the story. Our characters are coming from Earth into the story. So these 3 main characters are Bruce Banner, Jennifer Walters, and Amadeus Cho, all Hulks presently in human form. Now, Sakaar and Nevo, Planet Hulk is so complicated. Sakaar and Nevo is the new version of the planet that Bruce accidentally landed on and eventually became king of in the Planet Hulk event. When Hulk left, Sakaar, the original, was ruled by his son, Scar. I'm going to confuse those. Sakaar is the planet, Scar is the kid. Scar destroyed the planet. Much of the population came to this new planet, Sakaar and Nevo, which I'm sure must mean just like New Sakaar. Amadeus makes a comment about having been on the old world before it was destroyed. That's what he's talking about. Now, the original planet was eventually restored via time stone shenanigans, so there's 2 Sakaars out there, possibly not important right now. What is important is that Sakaar and Nevo is ruled by the Hulk's other son, Hirokala. Well, until recently, because Hirokala has recently died and been killed. And that's why Bruce and company is en route for the funeral proceedings and investigate what's really happened. Bruce has asked Jen and Amadeus to come along. Now, these other two Hulks don't do a whole lot in this issue. They kind of give Hulk someone to explain things to so that we readers can listen in, but presumably they'll have more to do in subsequent issues.
Yeah, I mean, they leave She-Hulk behind, right? To
right.
prevent the various wives of his deceased son from starting like another civil war on the planet.
Yeah, they do split up, so that's why I think she's going to have stuff to do. And she even gets that own tie-in issue, right? So she's going to get her own thing. But for this issue, they didn't do a whole heck of a lot. When the trio of Hulks get to Sakaar and Nevo, they transform into Hulk forms, put on like the local garb of weapons and armor, and that's how they exist on this planet, always as Hulks. And they're not here as humans, they're not here as Earthlings, they're here as Hulks. We get a nice fight scene in which the Hulk announces his presence to natives, and they in turn recognize that their World Breaker has returned. So he has great authority and notoriety. A team of specialist alien medical examiners examine the body of Hirokala, and they determine that he was killed by a poison. But what kind of poison could kill the son of Hulk? Well, this poison has two components, the first of which is highly adaptable, and the second of which is powerful and direct. Now, jumping ahead a little bit, we'll learn later that this poison comes from the Kree Skull Empire, with the two components mimicking aspects of the Skrull and the Kree respectively, right? One sneaky and transforming, one powerful and direct.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the way poison and biology really works, but hey, it's a comic book, works for me.
Yeah, I guess it's supposed to be a clue.
Right.
So you could figure out the source, but yeah, I did.
Yeah, I did enjoy the reveal. The reveal comes up much later. I figured I'd explain it here because this is where it gets set up. But yeah, it was a pretty neat little setup there. We also learned something else really important. Hirokala is not the only galactic leader recently assassinated. Total of 4 within the past 2 space weeks. All killed with the same poison. And I guess that's the crux of this whole series, maybe, trying to figure out who has been murdering galactic leaders and why. Probably tied to 1 or 2 of those people we saw in the frame story, but we don't know yet. Part 1 wraps up with Hirokala's funeral and cremation. Hulk declares a 5-day mourning period, and here's where he says, hey, She-Hulk, you stick around here to oversee those 5 days and to keep the peace, while me and Amadeus, we're going to go continue on into part 2. So, yeah, Hulk says, don't worry, Jen, I'm going to come back in 5 days. I give you my word. And we get an ominous narration box that says, the Hulk would not return in 5 days. So, already after just part 1, I'd call that a pretty good comic book, right? It sets up a story, we get some cool settings, we get a fight scene, we get a mystery, we get some reasons to care about the mystery. Pretty good stuff. Were you pretty happy at the end of part 1 here?
Yeah, it caught my interest, and I never read Planet Hulk, so I was particularly impressed by how well Hickman laid the foundation. I had it pretty much figured out by the time I was done with the chapter.
Nice.
How things worked on the planet and what may have transpired in that series.
I read some of it at least, but a long, long time ago. Like, I remember the Illuminati shooting Hulk into space to try to get rid of him, and how he landed on the wrong planet and things went bad there. So I remember some of it, but his whole multiple kids and his lineage, I don't know any of that stuff. So now we're on to part 2, which is called Through the Fulcrum, which is, as a physics guy, that's an odd metaphor. You don't go through a fulcrum, right? Fulcrum's the part where you pivot your lever on, but this is called Through the Fulcrum. And the fulcrum, in this case, is the name of a cosmic hub, newly built space station meant to facilitate travel, trade, diplomacy between worlds. Kind of reminiscent of like the EU or the UN. Some people think, oh, this is just a prelude to actual taking over and we're all going to be run by the same world government. But they say, no, we're not up to that. You're totally wrong. And this whole section is mostly a collection of conversations. I can see why some folks would get a little bored here because we get a scene of this conversation, a scene of that conversation. It's like we're watching a bunch of Zoom meetings. Zoom meetings with aliens talking about cool stuff, but still Zoom meetings. The first conversation we see is between Star-Lord, Peter Quill, and his dad, Jason. At least J''SON. I'm going to go with Jason. They are conversing over the cryostasified body of Star-Lord's half-sister, Victoria, Empress of Spartax. This Spartax stuff is a Bendis creation from back when he wrote the Guardians of the Galaxy book. Are you Have you read the Bendis Guardians things? I think you've read more Guardians than I have, at least.
Yeah, this is familiar with me.
Okay. So is it shocking to see Victoria all basically dead here? Because I had never heard of her before.
They have a strong relationship. So what was shocking to me was Peter's sort of indifference, because every time they are shown together, even in the Brain Trust recent run, she shows up and they're kind of, friendly.
Okay.
Granted, she's always Spartax first, so there have been times when she has been willing to seemingly attack and maybe kill her brother, but he always treats her as like the little sister that he really likes.
And they do lampshade the fact, he calls out that in serious situations, he's always the one being sarcastic. So if you're thinking about like the movie Star-Lord leaking into the comic books, this is part of that. So Victoria is not quite dead, but we're led to believe she will be dead pretty soon, even with the cryostasis slowing things down. And while she's out of action, her dad, also Star-Lord's dad, Jason, is acting as Emperor. Jason wants Star-Lord to help out, but not directly, as law and order stuff isn't exactly Star-Lord's strong suit. He wants his son to recruit somebody more appropriate. And so Star-Lord goes elsewhere in the station to another bar, probably not the same bar as in the Frame story, and there he finds Nova, Richard Rider. Same Nova who was on Arakko in X-Men Red, same Richard Rider Nova who was recently in Phoenix, talking about how hot Phoenix looked in a new outfit. I got a little bit confused by the visuals here because Star-Lord, Nova, and Jason all have similar hair and beard styles.
Yeah.
So Star-Lord is the only blonde, and Jason clearly looks older. But yeah, Nova kind of looks like a younger version of Star-Lord's dad, which is a little weird. And I'm not sure if this next bit is important, but Hickman did find room to fit into this crowded book, so it's probably going to come back. Nova and Star-Lord, as they drink and chat, they also watch one of those steel cage death matches that happen in all these books, right? There's always some sort of underworld fighting group to gamble on. This fight is between pairs of symbiotically linked Shi'ar-related aliens. Are they robots? These robots are aliens. Ruben, do you have any idea? These creatures?
No.
Yeah, unclear to me.
I don't recognize them.
So each pair there's a small, smart one called the B'ni, and the B'ni rides on the shoulders of the big, strong one called a Cecil. So yes, this is a Beanie and Cecil joke. Do you even know who Beanie and Cecil are, Ruben?
No, not at all.
They were a kid's puppet show going back into the 50s, where Beanie is this little kid who rides on the back of Cecil, a dinosaur. Beanie and Cecil. But these aren't new characters. This is not a Hickman joke. Beanie and Cecil date back to 1980, were created by Claremont and Byrne themselves. So this joke has a long history. Star-Lord makes a big deal about...
They were Super Guardians at some point.
Yeah.
And then they were replaced because they weren't that effective.
Yeah, they got a new model, a new way to do it. So yeah, the idea is that these Benies and Cecils are trying to work themselves back into being top of the heap, being needed by the Emperor, by the Shi'ar, the Empress, I guess. Mm-hmm. And we're told that in these fights, every time one loses, it kind of evolves or grows and learns how to be a little bit stronger than before. Really seems to be a theme Hickman's hitting very hard here, so I don't know quite what it's going to turn out to be, but it feels like it means something. But anyway...
I also thought, I was a little surprised that Star-Lord had such a hard time recruiting Rich, because they had a lot of history from the Annihilation era.
Okay.
Where they basically were in the trenches war buddies.
Yeah, Nova says, I guess we're supposed to think that he's been through a lot. He didn't seem to have that hard. He had a hard time on Arakko for sure, right? He seemed to be dead after he took that arrow.
This is all continuing the Annihilation story. So there was an era when there was a Nova Corps, right?
Yes.
I think that was the status quo for a very long time, but in the early 2000s, they were basically entirely wiped out by...
Yeah, they're kind of a Marvel Green Lantern Corps-ish group.
Yeah, it wasn't Dormammu, but it was that bug person from the Negative Zone. I can't remember his name.
Right.
But anyways, he came to Earth and
Is it Annihilus?
Annihilus, there you go. That's right. Okay. Yeah, so Annihilus came through some portal from, I think it's the Negative Zone. Is that right?
Sure,
in any event, yeah, he came into Earth basically where the Nova homeworld was and just completely leveled it.
Yeah, we're told there's only 2 Novas left. Who's the other? Putting on the spot there. Who's the other living Nova besides Richard Rider?
I don't know. That's a piece that they mentioned, but I didn't know.
There's one more out there, but what Nova says here is that, Star-Lord, you're kind of a criminal type. Your dad, who you want me to help out, he calls him a power-hungry aristocrat, which he says is just a different kind of criminal. Yeah. So, yeah, Nova's not immediately on board with helping out for whatever reason.
But Rich is a lot more powerful than he ever was. He was originally just one of however many, and they all shared the Nova Force, but once the Annihilation Wave destroyed everything, all the power got centralized with him.
Interesting. So, while this conversation's happening, the Hulks arrive on the station, the two of them, Bruce and Amadeus. They ask to be taken to someone in charge. Failing that, at least someone who can get things done. So they're going to be taken to Jason, acting Emperor of Spartax. But before that, Jason has another meeting. This one is between himself, Nimbus Sternhoof of the Chameleons, and Kalark of the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, also known as Gladiator. Okay, so the Chameleons are those horse-looking aliens first showed up in Power Pack all those years ago. And Nimbus Sternhoof is not a new character, comes from the recentish Al Ewing Guardians run. So I guess you're an old friend of Nimbus Sternhoof here?
Not one of his memorable creations. I don't remember this character.
Well, I'm glad you're not too close with Nimbus, because Nimbus is not going to make it out of this issue. So, in Gladiator, Kalark is one of Marvel's bigger cosmic characters. He's always extremely loyal to the Shi'ar Empire. So, Ruben, do you happen to know where Kalark's name comes from? No. Now, all the Guardians were originally based on DC Legion of Superheroes characters.
Oh, it's Clark.
Yes. So, artist Dave Cockrum had just been he had been on Legion for a couple years, and then I think for a raise or something, because at those years you weren't getting paid a lot to be a Marvel artist or a DC artist. He transferred to Marvel after 2 years on Legion, and so everybody was based on a Legion character, and Kalark was based on Superboy, and the name is Kal-El plus Clark squished together, Kalark. So there's your useless comic book trivia for the week. And mostly what these three talk about here is how the Wakandans haven't shown up. Now, another whole rabbit hole. Ruben, how familiar are you with these space Wakandans? The intergalactic Wakandan Empire.
Yeah, I know it exists, and I just remember you guys griping about how kind of ridiculous the idea was.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen them in space.
Here's the quick and dirty background. It's a Ta-Nehisi Coates thing from his run on Black Panther. The idea is that T'Challa wanted to find out where that big old vibranium meteorite came from, right? That's the meteorite that lands in Wakanda, kind of makes Wakanda what it is. Mm-hmm. Those Wakandans who were sent into space ended up falling through a temporal anomaly, as happens. They got sent thousands of years into the past and wound up founding this huge space empire based on Wakandan culture. So that's why there are all these planets full of people who look like Black Panther and do stuff with vibranium. Mm. In this story, Jason and company want the Wakandans involved because of the need for vibranium to mass produce more Stargates. And the Wakandans don't want to get involved with the political stuff, very much in line with how Wakanda on Earth tries to stay aloof from all that Earth politics.
Yeah.
Now, Ruben, there's a word here I kept expecting to see, and this word very conspicuously never comes up. Yeah. What word do you think I'm talking about?
This word would have made this 100% an X-Men comic.
It would. It would indeed.
Yeah. This calls it into question. Mysterium, which was supposedly better than vibranium, but Mysterium, I guess we're just going to forget about it.
This huge thing, right? It has all those great properties. It protects against magic, protects against heat, was going to be the foundation of the entire faltering galactic economy.
Yep.
Never comes up. So yeah, it does feel like that came from, wasn't S.H.I.E.L.D. What was the book that came from?
X-Men Red.
X-Men Red? But what was the space one, the Al Ewing space one that got kind of canceled soon?
Are we talking about Sword?
It was Sword. Yeah. I was talking about Sword, yeah. So yeah, it does feel like, sadly, Mysterium's kind of getting swept under the rug. Not really a thing anymore.
I mean, it was part of Iron Man's suit, right? And then he had to trade it to the infernal powers, right? At the end of the current Iron Man run.
I'm unfamiliar with that. So are they also getting rid of Mysterium and Iron Man? That's kind of interesting.
Yes.
So yeah, must be
Mysterium
across
armor was price paid to deal with one of the conflicts that he was in.
Okay. So yeah, Mysterium never really became as big a thing as it seemed. Now, after this scene, Jason does meet briefly with the Hulk. They commiserate over their shared situation, right? Both of their kids have been assassinated. Both these dads have been drawn into galactic politics. Mm-hmm. And Jason invites Hulk to sit in on the upcoming Galactic Council meeting despite the fact that Sakaar and Nevo is kind of a backwater, not really part of the big boys here. And as this second part of the book comes to a close, we're only halfway through, folks, as it comes to a close, the galactic medical examiners tell Jason that, sorry, your daughter is going to soon die. And this is where they identify the source of the poison being the Kree Skrull thing that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, part 2, I also enjoyed this. I did a lot of wiki diving in this section to figure out who all these characters were. It's on the talky side. Again, really a series of meetings and conversations. Folks, hang on. There'll be a lot more action in the next section, I promise. What did you think, though, of section number 2 here?
Well, I love the politics and organizations, and I thought it was done well. And that scene where, it might be chapter 3, but there's a scene where Jason is like, I guess it's right, beginning of chapter 3, where Jason is,
we'll get
giving a
to the
speech to
in a
delegation.
second.
I was like zooming in. I was like, oh, who are all these people?
Oh, we're going to talk about that double-page spread in detail. Don't you worry.
Yeah, but regardless, I just enjoyed the intrigue that was going on here, and even though I was kind of griping a little bit about Rich and Star-Lord and their kind of interactions, I guess they are still sharing beers and going to a fight and having conversations. So it didn't really bother me that much, and I just kind of, I don't know, the settings and the dynamics I was kind of on board with.
The biggest criticisms I've read online are people saying that certain characters are being written out of character for what they want to see. I don't really know a lot of these cosmic characters so much, so for me, it's just kind of a fun story, and I'm not bothered by any contradictions because I don't know the contradictions.
Maybe Rich is morose because he didn't hook up with Phoenix. That's why he's like
could be
grumpy at the bar, pissed off.
He never sealed the deal on that one, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next part 3, Poison the Water, Poison the Well. This part also takes place on the Fulcrum, consists of a single scene, that Galactic Council meeting that Hulk was invited to attend. Chapter opens with Jason making a speech to the Council, and it's a classic mystery novel kind of speech, where the new Emperor announces that murder has been committed, regicide in fact, and the murderer is in the room right now. Very, very dramatic. So here's where we cut to that very nifty double-page spread, with Jason in the foreground, and all sorts of Marvel cosmic characters in the background listen to the speech. So again, like you, I zoomed in and looked around. We've got Hulk and Amadeus. We've got Star-Lord. We've got those horse aliens. We've got Gladiator, Deathbird, and Majestrix Neromani of the Shi'ar. From the Kree Skrull Empire, we see Emperor Hulkling, Wiccan, the Super Skrull, and Ronan the Accuser, which is surprising because Ronan the Accuser died in Death of Inhumans several years ago, and how he got back is not explained at all. So who knows? He was dead then. He's back now.
Who's the guy with the spade on his forehead? Definitely looks like
guy with a spade on. What? Give me a direction. Give me a quadrant here.
He's just to the right of Jason's hand. Below, I guess he's like near one of the Shi'ar. There's like a big orange guy.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I do see Mentacle there.
Do you see like some weird like zombie kind of faced people?
Sure, with the pointy teeth.
Yes, yeah, he's like right above the one to the right. And there's an old man with white hair, and he's got like a spade on his forehead.
Oh, my goodness, that is one of the Sinisters, isn't it?
It looks like it, right?
Which Sinister had the spade on the forehead? Sinister.
I thought that was Stasis.
Forehead. Yada yada. Jamie, you can edit this out. I don't even know. That's an interesting question. I didn't know.
Anyways, as soon as I saw that spade, I was like, "Is this a Mr. Sinister character, or is there somebody else that has just a common spade? Just as a tattoo you get, right? Just put a spade on your head if you really like poker."
Could be, or if you lose a bet, maybe.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of other people I don't recognize. We got some lizard people. We got some basic Shi'ar warrior types. So the idea is that kind of everybody's here, and they're kind of all suspects. Pretty neat.
Probably Hulkling and Wiccan would be like the two important ones that you see here.
Yeah, they're certainly the biggest characters in the book who don't get any actual dialogue, and who, spoiler, may be dead by the end. Probably not, but in theory, they might be dead. So yeah, anyway, all these galactic luminaries are here. Jason has just said, want to use a murderer. Naturally, a murmur goes through the crowd. Jason explains about the poison, the one that has killed his daughter and Hulk's son. Says it's also killed the throne guardian of the empty Orion chair and the last witch of the Zartan deviants. I could not find any trace on the internet of who that might be referring to, but maybe there's so many worlds out there. Maybe these are 2 new ones Hickman made up. Couldn't tell you. The word deviants caught my attention,
They just sound cool, right? It's a race of deviants that went through a time portal and founded a
but we know that
intergalactic space civilization.
Yeah, Eternals and deviants exist on other worlds too, because they were seeded there by everybody, so could be other deviants. And now's when we get the reveal that it was a Kree Skrull poison. Emperor Hulkling and company really offended. The horse people want the Kree and the Skrull all arrested. Chaos occurs. Hulkling denies. I guess Hulkling does get a little bit of dialogue here. He says, basically, we didn't do it. We wouldn't do such a thing. But one of his science ministers pipes up and says, well, Your Highness, actually, we were hired to create just such a poison, kind of what we do. We make and sell weapons. But before the minister can give details onto who the customer was, he gets shot in the head. Oh well. More chaos, more shooting. Nimbus Sternhoof of the horse people gets shot and killed. Gladiator looks like he just gets wounded a little bit. Jason, Star-Lord's dad, is shot and killed.
That was a big surprise to me.
That's pretty big. Amadeus does some sciencey stuff. This is really the only thing he does in the book. He does some sciencey stuff to trace where the bullets are coming from. Hulk leaps up to a ledge where he finds that the sniper is a space Wakandan. So that's how the Black Panther types get into this book. This Wakandan sniper sets off an explosive, breaking the dome of the space station, and everybody, all the dignitaries, float off into space in a vacuum.
Yep.
Hulk is about to chase after the assassin, but instead he gets called back to help save as many floating space dignitaries as can be saved. The character who calls him back is another Shi'ar Guardian. This one is named Sybil. She's psychic, which is how she can communicate with Hulk through the vacuum of space, and she was originally based on Saturn Girl, all based on Legion characters.
Is she the wife of Cannonball?
No.
Okay.
Different character. That's somebody Smasher.
Okay.
And she's just human. That one, I think. Anyway, different character. My brain's going off base here. So that's the end of part 3. Pretty exciting. We get accusations, assassinations, giant disaster in space, all these big characters floating in the vacuum of space, and big doings. Time for the 4th and thankfully final part. Part 4, Nature Abhors a Vacuum, which, honestly, nature doesn't care one way or another about a vacuum. It's just a saying. Relatively short chapter. We've jumped ahead in time, maybe an hour, maybe 2, aftermath of the attack. We're told that there's at least a dozen dead, including 3 more heads of state. So that'd be Jason and Nimbus, the horse guy, or horse person. Any idea who the 3rd dead head of state would be? I couldn't catch one.
No, but I don't know all the races that were present.
Right. There were so many, could be anybody. We're told that even more are missing, maybe dead, and the missing ones include Emperor Hulkling and his consort Wiccan.
Yep.
So we got lots of angry people. All the races are pissed off. It seems like there's going to be a war, but against whom, we don't know because they don't know yet who did this. We see Star-Lord take the Imperial ring off the finger of his dead father. Does that mean Peter Quill is acting Emperor of Spartax now?
Yep, that's what it seems like.
I guess if he got the ring, I guess how it works.
Yeah, and his sisters, in stasis or dead.
Yeah, I don't know who would be next in line.
That's a pretty big development for goofball Star-Lord.
Mm-hmm. Nova comes on back. He offers to help. Oh, thanks, Richard. Now you'll help out. But, better late than never.
Yes.
And it seems like the 2 beard bros are going to be teaming up to look for the culprits.
Yep.
Hour after that, we get a meeting of various bigwigs. Ronan, the no longer dead accuser, he has some accusing to do. There's been an analysis of these sniper bullets. They're vibranium. There's been a good hard look at security footage. Shame security didn't prevent this in the first place, but hey, we can look at the after action. And boy, that sniper sure looks Wakandan. We also get a forensic analysis of those payments, who was buying this poison from the Kree Skrull, and those payments came from Wakanda Prime. I guess the main homeworld of the Space Wakandans. So yeah, sure looks like the war is going to be everybody against the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. And that's where this book ends. So, certainly some questions here. Not plot hole questions, how was Ronan alive again? More importantly, some kind of speculative questions. Like, if this is the doing of the Space Wakandans, what could their motive possibly be? Do you think this is like the Empire itself? Could be like a rogue faction within? There's always rogue factions in anything Wakanda. That's kind of what they do.
I would say that was a rogue faction. And then, I'm maybe unfairly thinking about what happens with the Shi'ar and, the capture of Deathbird and it's not
We're
Lander, but
talking about X-Manhunt things, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's maybe unfair there, but we had, a rogue faction trying to destabilize their government.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because how does this even connect with what we saw there in X-Manhunt? Because there, yes, like you say, we saw Majestrix Niramani attacked in space by this rogue faction.
Yeah.
Did that happen before Imperial? Does that happen after Imperial? Is that attempted overthrow of a government connected with all these overthrowing of governments?
That's my prediction. There's a final page where it goes back to the two mysterious games players, right? And that's where you see the idea of like the bigger space creature eating the space creature that ate the other space creature.
Right.
Which, if you're just looking at that, it's like, okay, there's always a bigger fish, right, taking over this. So maybe it's these two manipulators, but I kind of felt like this is more foreshadowing of, war
somebody
within
else.
War within. Yeah.
It almost seems like, the hint is there's a completely separate, even bigger actor in the background who's going to come in and swallow everything up.
Which would be, in my mind, it'd be super cool if it was like all these people are fighting the space Wakandans, but in reality, there's somebody who's, trying to destabilize every space government and instill their own power, controllers,
Certainly
which would
could
be
be.
interesting.
I hope that it ties in well with X-Manhunt, because X-Manhunt was clearly made up very late in the game to try to make things okay for Imperial to happen.
Yeah.
It felt very clumsy, very rushed, but I hope it connects somehow. I really don't want to see that Xavier's got to show up somewhere. So I think next time we see Charles Xavier, there's got to be some explanation for how X-Manhunt connects with Imperial. I haven't seen any previews that say Charles is absolutely going to be in Imperial.
Yeah.
He almost feels like he wouldn't really fit in with this cast of characters so much. Again, Niramani's here, so who knows? Hulkling and Wiccan, do you think that Marvel would really kill these two guys off? So just offhand like this?
Yeah, they floated off into space, and that was the end of them.
Yeah, I think they've got to still be around. Marvel would not want to do that to this couple. What else do we want to see? Oh yeah, I think those are the main questions. And yeah, I thought this was a really good book. Hickman almost always gets me with his issue number ones, right? God's number one, House of X number one to the bullet point older one. He really knows how to set up these huge new worlds, new concepts. Doesn't always work out in the end quite as well as you'd like, but he really sets things up very well. And we haven't talked about the art a lot, but everything does look very cool. There are a huge number of characters here, right? Every cosmic character you ever heard of, pretty much, especially in that one double page spread. And everything looks great. I don't know which of these two artists, Iban Coelho, Federico Vicentini. It doesn't seem like there are two separate art styles, as far as I can tell, unless you think it's going to be like one artist for the Sakaar and Novo scenes and one artist for the Galactic Space Station scenes, perhaps. But even so, it blends together pretty darn well. So art looks great. I guess we're ready to give it a score. I like this a lot, despite the total lack of hedgehogs. Not a single hedgehog in the book. And yet, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. I think it's a lot of fun. I think if you're the kind of person who can't tolerate a lot of Hickman BS talking about big ideas, this is not the book for you. Go, Google read about your hedgehogs and your robo-wolves and enjoy it. But for those of you who like Hickman doing Hickman things, Hickman's doing another Hickman thing, and you should come read about it. How about you, Ruben? What do you got?
Yeah, I'll give it a 9 as well. I really liked all the threads tied back to previous stories. It made all those stories feel more relevant, and it even kind of made me want to maybe check out Planet Hulk a little bit.
Nice.
And so that's a big plus. And I'm very cautious about this because I agree with you. Usually his issue number ones are awesome, and then he doesn't have any more to do or anything like solid to do. But the fact that
sometimes
it
feels like he's not allowed to do the thing he wants to do, and it gets kind of pulled back more into kind of standard generic Marvel nonsense rather than Hickman pure uncut Hickman the way we want.
Yeah, but that's true. And I would also say one of the reasons I tend to like Marvel Cosmic more than most people is Marvel doesn't seem to give a damn about these characters.
Yeah.
So people can just do any wild, crazy thing they want with them, and often do. So
right.
I have a feeling that he's got more freedom to make changes. Although, to your point, like I don't think he can actually kill off Wiccan and Hulkling.
Yeah, you're going to need like fewer editors to sign off on the Emperor of, some random space planet to be killed off, rather than I'm going to kill a Spider-Man. Right. It's going to be a bigger deal there.
Yep.
So a lot of fun. And I think we're both looking forward to that next issue, which I presume we're going to keep talking about Imperial on this show. I don't think Jim's going to suddenly decide, no, we're taking it back for the main Marvel show. So if folks happen to join in because you wanted to see what Imperial was going to be all about, hope you stick around for the rest of the stuff. Ready to move on?
Yep.
Let's go. Our next issue is just slightly different in tone than Imperial. It is Hellverine number 7, Laboratories of Hell. It is written by Benjamin Percy, art by Raphael Ienco, colors by Brian Valenza, letters by Travis Lanham. So yeah, this is another pleasantly goofy Hellverine issue from Ben Percy and Company. Ruben, do you remember when like Buffy the Vampire Slayer was really popular, and on like the coattails, all the other networks and syndicated people had to put out lower budget supernatural action shows trying to cash in? You remember that period of time?
Yep.
Yeah, this really reminds me of one of those. Like we got this team of extreme mismatched misfits. We get the over-the-top costumes and special effects. We get the melodrama. We get the sudden yet inevitable betrayal from a character who we knew was evil just from his character design. So, whole different, just kind of goofy action show comic, not at all like the intrigue and, intellectual creation of what we just read. Also fun. Now, we start off this issue by finishing up the Hell Hulk head retrieval mission begun last issue. This head was at the bottom of Lake Michigan, and its very presence had caused a cruise ship full of normies to go violently insane. Hellverine retrieves the head, and Steph curries it from long range, dropping it safely into a containment unit at the bottom of the lake. Now, I question the physics and fluid dynamics here of tossing it through the water, but it's Ben Percy comic book. Don't worry about those things.
Yeah.
I did think it was really funny how the violently insane people immediately revert to normal and just look so confused about where they find themselves. Right? Some of these people what they've done, they've jumped off a cruise ship into a lake, swum over to the rope hanging from a helicopter, climbed up the rope into the helicopter. So when they wake up from this daze, they're dripping wet in a helicopter. That's funny. That's got to be confusing. I like to imagine the Project Hellfire guy who's piloting the helicopter trying to explain to these folks what just happened. That's a funny scene I can write in my head.
Well, I laughed when he was telling Hellverine, like, I gotta cut the rope if you don't wrap this up in time. In the next scene, we see like the entire group in the ship. So I guess that was just a bluff that he was going to cut the rope. I'm not sure.
I guess time, I don't know how much time passed, but yeah, maybe there's even more already in there, more hang. Maybe what happened to the people who were hanging on the rope when they went back to normal? This book doesn't care about details.
I guess he let them all climb up.
It's very much like it reminds me of the World War Z commercials.
Yeah.
Where it was just hordes of zombie humans, but oh well. So next we get a montage of yet more Hell Hulk parts being retrieved. And if this was a 1990s syndicated show, every episode would be bringing back one more of these parts, right?
Yeah.
Or if it's a video game, feels a lot like a video game.
Mm-hmm.
And for every part, Hellverine gets this flash of information about the Hell Hulk's history, which Akihiro feels must be connected with his own. And it seems like Hell Hulk is a product of Hell's own version of Project X, and that both Mephisto and Bagra Ghul are involved in Hell Hulk's making. What the purpose was, hard to say, probably not very nice, given it's Mephisto.
Yeah.
They're not quite as dumb as we thought they were, Ruben, because they have not put the head back on the body. All the other parts are putting back together, but Akihiro convinces them, yeah, put the heads somewhere else. That seems like a bad idea to really put them together.
Yeah, the art in these little montage scenes cracks me up in a good way. Like, I enjoyed it. So we have Akihiro, and I don't know these characters' names, unfortunately, but, like, you know, his buddy, he's on, like, a ATV and Akihiro's on his motorcycle. And then for some reason, there's two wolves running with Akihiro.
Oh, I didn't see them in the background. Yeah. I wonder if they're part of that same pack that Wolverine got massacred back in Canada.
Yeah, that's what I was
the
thinking.
only two escapees.
Either that or that's just what Wolverine family people do is they
That's
become
funny as hell.
back.
That's good stuff.
And then the other one that cracks me up is, when they are arm wrestling in the break room, which in general is just kind of a funny thing. But
they're in the break room, they're like having coffee. You can see a toaster up in the background, a microwave. They're having cereal. And they're
it's just hilarious, like this really, 666, like kind of demonic stuff. And then you see them just hanging out in a break room. I'm like, that's just funny in and of itself.
They're very A-team, yeah.
Yes. And then I was looking at like the woman who's got the apple. And what the hell is she doing with that apple? She's like peeling it before she eats it. That's some weird stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's what people do with apples, but I just bite into them.
Like
I've
for
never
little
seen
kids,
this.
maybe.
Yeah, super
That is
weird.
weird. So yeah, very, very strange group. Also, they do the classic thing where they map out all the places where the parts were found. And no one's thought to do this until Akihiro mentions it. None of the PhDs. Nobody thought, hey, let's put these dots on a map.
Yeah.
And it turns out, I don't know how many parts they have, but it makes this really complicated symbol. It must have taken dozens and dozens of dots to make this work out.
Yeah.
But it's one more of those patterns that Akihiro knows from that book that Dr. Strange gave him.
Mm-hmm.
And this pattern means chaos.
Yeah.
Doesn't really, of course it's chaos. It's Mephisto. He likes chaos. No surprise.
Like, speaking of going back to 40K, like I swear to God, that's a Chaos Marines symbol.
I believe you. I absolutely believe you. So that's where 3K gets connected because they're also
like,
playing
Mephisto
3K.
plays 40K. What?
666K.
Really
that's what
weird.
you play in hell. So in the final scene of the issue, Akihiro wanders around Arlington National Cemetery drinking coffee. Now, Arlington is right next to the Pentagon, and the Pentangle's right under the Pentagon, so they're right next door.
Mm-hmm.
He's drinking his coffee when that creepy Severith guy, also on the team, approaches to talk to him.
Yeah.
Now, Ruben, we kind of knew from the start Severith was not going to be a good dude. He's demonic. He says, he's a product of human-demon kind of mating. He's got all these marks on his face. He's got one red eye. Not going to be a good dude. And so Severith hands Akihiro a cane, says, hold this for me. And that cane is cursed, and the curse freezes Akihiro in place, giving Severith a chance to do a villain monologue.
He was cursed as soon as he threw the coffee on the ground. I was looking at that and I was like, what are you doing, Akihiro?
That'll get you arrested in Seattle.
That's perfectly good coffee. You don't throw that on the ground.
You can take over a whole neighborhood, and that's fine. But to waste coffee, right to prison, right to jail right away.
Yeah.
So Severith says, I used to work in hell in one of Mephisto's laboratories, and Severith says that he created the Hell Hulk. What a coincidence. Severith cuts off the story there because the issue's almost over, but ends by sealing Akihiro inside a black pyramid, still there in Arlington Cemetery. Someone's going to notice. And he says he's going to go to put the Hell Hulk back together again, put the head on, and presumably release him into an unsuspecting world.
Yeah.
So that's the issue. A lot of fun, very goofy, very silly, very 1980s, 90s action horror TV show. Goofy, fun action story. Not going to win any Eisners. Not going to have any effect on Marvel continuity going forward. This is not a prestige project. But if it sounds like fun to you, like I like to say, it does what it sets out to do. It's a good book. 8 out of 10. How about you, Ruben?
Yeah, everything you say I echo, and I really do enjoy this book, but I want to be more rational and I'll go 7.5. It doesn't deserve an 8, but it's a ton of fun. And
it's not important, right? We went to think, the big books like Imperial can be this really big thing that has such further implications where no one's ever going to reference this again, I think. But for what it does it well. That's why I give it the 8.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I should actually go to 7. I'm going to give it 7 because I think that's what I gave X-Men. In my mind, these are both perfectly adequate stories that are good. I do want to, again, I still want to see somebody else fighting the Hell Hulk besides Akihiro and just being like, what the hell is this thing? But
like a guest star like Captain America comes in?
Yeah. Well, my real dream is that it shows up in, some other book, but
okay.
I know that's not going to happen.
Oh, what other book would it show up in?
It could show up in Red Hulk. That'd be great. They could think it's the Red Hulk.
That would be confusing. Oh, okay.
Why does it have horns?
I'm not even familiar with so much of the other or Eddie Brock Carnage.
Laura Kinney Wolverine.
Spider-Boy versus Hellhawk.
Laura
That'll
Kinney
be a
Wolverine.
clash of cultures.
Then we would have a reason for that book.
Ugh. Yeah, we're not talking about Laura Kinney this week. But we are going to talk about, hey, transition time, Storm number 9.
Number 9.
Sinister Schemes of the Stars and Stripes. Written by Murewa Ayodele, art by Lucas Werneck, who is making this probably the best-looking Marvel book currently ongoing, colors by Alex Guimaraes, and letters by Travis Lanham. So, Ruben, I think you're more into this book than I am. I'm kind of getting a little sick and tired of what's going on here. So I'm going to turn things over to you and tell me why you care.
And then it comes back. And this is an issue where it came back for me.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what triggers my interest in it this week, but there were just enough, maybe just like continuity ties that just kind of got me excited. I think that might be a thing that I'm into. But, as we left off the last issue, we had Storm kind of being busted for helping Charles escape during X-Manhunt.
Right.
And so she's in prison, and I guess she, after some soul searching about how she ended up here, she decides to call her lawyer. She uses her call her one chance to call the lawyer.
And who would her lawyer be?
Yeah, it's Jen Walters.
Naturally.
Yep. It's either going to be Jen Walters or
Daredevil.
Daredevil, yeah. That's the only two people.
I'm not caught up on that. He was a priest for a while. Is he back to practicing law? He may not be practicing law at the moment, so it's got to be Jennifer Walters.
Yeah, understood. But you can't reach her because she is up on the Storm Sanctuary participating in whatever the hell was going on.
Maggot was running a kumite, running a tournament. And this bugs me because in the recap, it says that Maggot is running this tournament in order to prepare for this Thunder War, the war of these Thunder Gods that Storm's going to be part of. And they didn't say that in the actual comic last time, did they?
No, not at all.
I hate it when they do that.
Information
really
that were
me.
Being given outside of 4 pages. I didn't read that recap, so...
It feels like the writer or the editor realizing, oops, we forgot to tell you something. Yeah. We'll try to slip it in the recap. And a recap should not be adding new information. That's bogus.
So the Kumite itself is a little ridiculous. I think that's definitely the weakest part of the story. I still don't understand why these characters are participating. Why would they be up for just beating the crap out of each other?
Much lighter and goofier.
Yeah. So you have Strong Guy fighting She-Hulk. And she definitely activates his dental plan, but the art makes it look like she just straight up kills him.
Oh, he's dead. She punches through his skull, shoots his nose right into his brain.
Yes.
But before that, though, it's also weird because he hits her, and he knocks the green right off of her face. I don't think that's how She-Hulk works.
No,
I don't think you hurt her and she goes back to being human. I don't think that's correct.
Yeah. And there's a whole little dialogue bit about power shifters, which I don't really know what that is about.
It's not even dialogue. It's omniscient narration talking about how some beings can get transformed to somebody who can draw unlimited power from wherever. Yeah. So, and it's supposed to be about, this is
that Strong Guy or is that She-Hulk?
I think all of them are supposed to be power shifters.
Okay.
I don't know. I think the idea is that that's why one of these might be strong enough to participate in the Thunder War, because they can shift that power. Mm-hmm. So we see She-Hulk defeat and murder to death Strong Guy. We will never see him again. No more resurrection. He's gone. We see Juggernaut choke out Abomination, which again, why would all these characters just agree to participate in this stupid tournament?
Yeah, that was my big complaint last time. I was like, why would the villains show up?
Why would the heroes just go along with it?
Yeah.
We see Big Bertha defeat Armor. Yeah. Okay.
Which I, in the Slack, was joking that in my mind tells me that Armor is also dead. Because I don't know how you get to defeat Armor unless you've broken the armor, and then what's that mean? Big Bertha squished her? So
we see that Omega Maggot defeats Gentle, and I'm fine with that. We know he's been Omega-ized by Infinity, so sure he's going to win. Yep. And so that's going on for a while. It does come back at the end. I did enjoy the way it came back at the end, but we go off now to Storm in detention, who gets this whole interrogation scene. We get this dead alien fungus lie detector that looks really cool, but kind of off-putting. Yep. And Storm keeps making a big deal about, I'm only going to tell you things that happened in the U.S. I'm not going to say anything that happened when I was outside the country.
Yeah, she's very big on civil rights. I guess she acknowledges that she has an obligation to answer their questions about U.S., but
I guess, but we're in. They tell us right away. We're during one world under doom times now.
Yep.
So national borders aren't so much a thing at the moment. I know they still technically exist, but this is all being run under the auspices of Doctor Doom. So if you're telling Doctor Doom's people what you did, I don't see why. Oh, I did this plotting when I stepped across the border into Canada. Mm-hmm. I don't have to tell you. I don't think that's the way that works. Again, I've never testified about anything, but
I'm not even sure that works like in this timeline, in the real timeline.
But they talk about
diplomatic immunity.
Oh, I didn't load that scene here. That one. I only have what do I have? I have.
I am shocked. Shocked.
Well,
not that shocked.
Talk a lot about how that one kid from issue number 1, who was the big power that went awry and caused all that damage and wherever it was. Apparently, Storm is hiding that kid somewhere, but she's kind of had Dr. Voodoo put like a spell on her so she can't say where the kid is?
Yep.
Is that what's going on?
Yep. Yeah, apparently she asked him to do some magic so when she talks, people can't hear what she says.
Mm-hmm.
I guess predicting this exact situation. But the bit I like about this is during the interrogation, she's asked, are mutants a threat to the U.S.? And she says basically no. And then the truth detector says, she believes that. And then he talks to her about how many people and how much damage was done.
That? We've just finished up where mutants have almost destroyed Earth. How many times? How can she not believe mutants are a threat? Come on, Storm.
Yeah, well, you're apparently on board with the ONE team and their perspective. So anyways, after he talks to her about some of this stuff, I guess she ends up kind of coming around and realizing that maybe they are actually a threat.
I guess. So the ONE people, or the agents from wherever this are, they go into limbo and they make a deal with some of the limbo demons. And I guess they send those limbo demons off to attack the Kumite?
Yes. So apparently the whole reason for this interrogation is not to actually try to put Storm in a prison. It's to get her off of the Storm Sanctuary because the ONE folks have detected some sort of major weapon on the Storm Sanctuary, and they want to go and retrieve it.
So really similar to the plot of the X-Men book we just talked about, where you want to get the powerful people away from the base so you can invade the base.
Yep. Yeah, it's the same idea.
But this result was funny. We don't even see this fight scene. We cut to the Kumite, and all these super powerful, super strong people who are fighting each other just beat the crap out of those demons.
Yes. Yeah.
That's good. I like that bit. That was good stuff. That was a well-timed, good sense of humor by Mr. Iodele.
Yep. Even have Omega Maggot eating something, as he might do. This demon.
Yeah.
And do we know that John Ironside was part of the Kumite? So I kind of like seeing him in here.
Oh, is he the one with the big sword?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while, right?
Callisto, she's there with her daggers. I thought that was kind of neat.
Yep.
So quite the collection of characters there. And Eden, we already knew that he was there, as well as Gateway, because Gateway's always in these places.
Yeah, who's the woman in the front?
Looks very Iraqi, doesn't she?
Yeah.
I couldn't place her.
I was like, is that an Iska? It would be super weird.
Storm 9 fandom. Let's see if the wiki knows. As you can tell, I do not have extensive notes on this one. We see...
Yeah, that's Iska. I'm looking at a picture of Iska. So...
Yeah, Iska is listed as a character here, as is John Ironfire, yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty wild. Like, why would you invite Iska to the Kumite? I mean, you pretty much are saying she's... just give her the prize, funny. Right? Like, there's no reason to have her participate.
Also, Blue Marvel was like the referee at one point. That's kind of a fun pull. But yeah, that's true. If Iska's in the tournament, Iska is winning the tournament. It is known.
But, and this is only Storm, but I feel like this is getting so much art that this will be referenced elsewhere. I was like, it's an Iska sighting and a John Ironside sighting. So the Iraqi have not been completely, shut off and forgotten about. They still exist. Mm-hmm. So that made me happy. And maybe this means that Iodele at least remembers or is aware that Storm was affiliated with these folks, being on the Great Council. And I've been just hoping that they would explain like how she got to Earth and how does that relate to her responsibilities as Regent.
Yeah, it does seem like like Tom Brevoort, the big conductor of X guy, he kind of wants to have this big separation between what was then and what is now. But nerds like us, we want to see the continuity. We want to know how
I mean,
it happened.
you can move away from this. I just need to have like an explanation for why you've moved away.
Indeed.
So and maybe one of the reasons I got excited when I read this issue. I was like, okay, we're showing that crew still here.
So I guess at the end here, Jen gets her client Storm out of custody, and then back at the sanctuary, she has a talk with Eden, and we have this creature scene there in the Storm Sanctuary. Is it Abraxas, the bomb entity? Is that the big cosmic power source that ONE was looking for?
Yes. Yeah. So it's revealed that Storm has been starting to have blackouts. So when she's being possessed by Eternity, it's no longer him taking over her body and her being able to see through her eyes but not control herself. Now they're saying that Eternity has like exerted so much control over her that she just kind of like wakes up not remembering what happened between point A and point B.
Okay.
And I appreciate this sort of like callback to basically saying it's sort of like abuse, right? Where she's not allowed people to like try to control her, physically in any way. And so she's like, I'm going to kill Eternity, essentially, for doing this.
Yeah, and again, I'm not really into this whole superpowered Eternity thing, where it feels like if this was going to be Eternity using Storm to fight this fight against, was it Oblivion?
Yes.
That other one. So I don't understand how we have, okay, I'm going to choose her to be the hero or to be my avatar, and now a bunch of other stuff happens. It feels like you should follow up on that right away. But I guess Storm has been possessed by Eternity and has abducted this cosmic bomb entity, which seems like a Chainsaw Man character, but that's a different whole universe.
Yep.
And yeah, so it just feels like a lot of pieces here that don't really fit together. So some interesting things. There's a weird bit where it seems like Iodeli's doing like a social commentary critique of United States law, like with the interrogation bit. We get a splash page or a title page of the Statue of Liberty looking like it's crying, which I'm not sure how that connects to anything except maybe that U.S. critique theme. Yes, some interesting ideas, but as a whole, it just doesn't work. So do you want to give this a score before I say I don't like it?
I'm going to give it another 7.
A 7. You're pretty even keel today. You like the 7s.
Yeah. Besides, I mean, I felt like Imperial was sort of like a shining exemplar issue. The rest of the stuff I read, I was like, I kind of like it. It's decent. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, they show the like in the near future scene at the very end where Storm, as possessed by Eternity, with the backup of this bomb entity, are finally facing off against Oblivion and his champion, which is the Hadad, one of the Thunder War gods. Mm-hmm. The only bit I don't understand about that is it sort of suggests that maybe Hadad already killed Oblivion.
It says Hadad has slain the great cosmic Leviathan, and I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I think it means Oblivion. Because
that seems unlikely to me.
Well, Oblivion talking through Storm says that basically Oblivion and Hadad will know defeat by my hands, and then it says Eternity's never been more wrong. No matter how great the power he amasses, Oblivion will not know defeat by his hands, meaning Eternity. And then it says, for in the void, Hadad has already slain the great cosmic Leviathan. I think that means Hadad actually was the champion of Oblivion, but killed Oblivion.
I guess we'll find out next time. I'm just ready for this whole Eternity Oblivion bit to be over with. Yeah. And I feel like it's probably going to keep going for another 8 to 10 issues of this. And that makes me feel tired. So story-wise, I'd probably give this on its own like a 5.5. But the art is so good that I got to give it at least a 6. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10. But again, it's the art elevating a story that I'm just having great difficulty caring about at all.
Well, next issue we get Storm riding the Silver Surfer surfboard.
Is it? Yeah, is it a surfboard or is it a sword? I guess it's the surfboard. I guess we'll see that next time. So that was the last issue we were going to talk about today. Again, Laura Kinney Wolverine did come out. It finished up a 2-issue arc. It wasn't great, wasn't awful. It was what it was. Next week, not the greatest crop of issues coming out next week. We have Exceptional X-Men number 10. Where last time it seemed like they defeated Mr. Sinister, but maybe this will be an of the mind because Emma collapsed and we're going to have some mental shenanigans with her.
Yeah, I went back and read that. this week, and because I wasn't on that recording that you did with Gray, and so I ended up skipping it at the time. But I ended up liking it better than I expected. I agreed with you guys. The stronger bit was the interpersonal relationship with the kids, but
that is what e-viewing is best at.
Yeah, but I actually thought the Sinister fight was fine. It wasn't as confusing as I think Gray was quite confused, but more because I think I'm very used to Sinister just doing whatever the hell he's going to do, right? You never know what powers he's got preloaded into his...
What clone he happens to be at the time, yeah.
Yeah, so it's fine to see him.
Yeah, we'll see what he might have done to Emma coming up next.
I think the most confusing part was the idea that he had like a Bobby clone as well as Bobby Drake himself.
Yeah, and why the Bobby clone went and brought the other kids into the fight?
Yeah,
I didn't
part was
understand that
a little bizarre. Yeah.
Maybe it'll make sense next time. Maybe they'll forget about it. Another issue next week is Magic number 6, which has Madeline Pryor as a guest star. So two
I
Queens
thought we
of
gave
Limbo.
up on that. Are we done with that? Or are you going to actually
I'm just
cover it?
listing what books are coming out.
Okay.
We need to figure out together what we're going to talk about, because we have Exceptional. We got to talk about Exceptional. It's allegedly one of the main 3 books. So we'll talk about that.
It might be worth checking out Magic just because we're past the middle, right? Just give it one chance to see, like, was that what was holding the story back?
Madeline or Magic had her pancakes, some Cyclops at the end of that arc. Now she's at her tummy full. Maybe it'll be better. We also have Phoenix number 12 next week. Solicit promises the secret origin of Sarah Gray, Jean's dead sister, currently slightly less dead. So hopefully that gets explained. And also next week, giant-sized Dark Phoenix number 1, where Ms. Marvel revisits probably the most overly revisited moment in X-Men history. I'm hoping we learn more about where this pseudo-Legion character is from, that future, what he's after. But I don't want to see Ms. Marvel be perfect and everyone tell her how wonderful she is again. So
yeah, speaking of Ms. Marvel, I recently watched the Ms. Marvel Disney Plus series, and I was really against the first issue or episode because it felt very much like the whole like she's infallible, but they kind of get away from that, and I ended up liking the character a lot. I mean, probably just because the actor that played her, but it made me think like maybe I actually could like this character if certain story beats were like de-emphasized.
That was the same actress who co-wrote a couple of those series we read, in fact, as you recall.
Yeah, exactly, which is surprising because I liked her characterization in the in the show, and I could not stand it when she wrote it. But I don't know. It made me think maybe I should go back and check out the original G. Willow Wilson run and see if that's more my speed.
Sounds good. That's the official recommended reading this week. Go back and read Ms. Marvel when she started out, and she was maybe a little more complex character than we have now. Also next week, we have Ultimate X-Men, which I guess I'll be talking about with Jim probably on the on the Marvel show. And it's also Deadpool Wolverine number 6. So if you're curious about that, as the whole Strife apocalypse thing going on, next issue is next week. And we should have a new arc of the Infinity comic to chat about. So some things to look forward to next week, some things to be a little trepidatious about, but I'm sure we will find something worth discussing. So until then, Ruben, what can our loyal listeners do to keep themselves safe from the galactic assassination rash?
Read more X-Men comics.
Get ready, everyone, and you just might survive. Ruben and Jason are here with their X-Men deep dive. Going through all the X-books is their mission, so get ready for the learned edition. Things are getting weird in here. Ruben hopes another sword book gets announced this year. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow, except your mind. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow, except your mind.
Schwarzschild.